feel like you're being pulled in 1,000 directions? Let's fix that. Download your free rebalancing toolkit and learn how to design an optimized week that lets you feel like you have it all. Get the goods at brilliantbalance.net/have-it-all.
I'm Cherylanne Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. Hello, you are listening to episode 27 of the Brilliant Balance podcast. And not only that, but today is May Day, which is kind of an old-fashioned holiday, I think. I love the tradition, though, that is rooted around May Day, which is hanging baskets of flowers on your neighbor's doors. Wouldn't you just love to wake up to that, to somebody having dropped a basket of flowers around your doorknob? Apparently, back in the day, people would take all of the flowers that they had gathered up during April and the storms and the showers, right? And they arranged them in little paper or wreaths and then hung them on the doors of their friends and their neighbors. And it was sort of a way of welcoming them into the warmer weather. So I just love that. Maybe because I love fresh flowers, and having them in the house just makes everything feel so finished, right? It's just such a nice touch to walk into the room and see fresh flowers. I bring them in every chance I get. So maybe today's a good day to add something new to the kitchen. They just make the whole house feel alive, which is great, especially when you spend a lot of time from home. And I often do, because one of my offices is in my home, which is one of the perks of being an entrepreneur, that I can avoid a commute whenever I want to. So we're going to talk today about entrepreneurship, specifically as it relates to working mothers, because I think our culture has really embraced entrepreneurship. If you think back even to when I was in college, which was a long time ago at this point, but back in the early 90s when I was in college, entrepreneurship was not really a popular career path unless you had parents who had been entrepreneurs and you were stepping into the family business, in which case it was definitely popular, maybe even expected. Most of my peers were going into big companies. You know, the sort of status symbol, the desirable career paths were still with big banks, big consumer products companies, big real estate companies. And that's where people were headed. So entrepreneurship, I think, has really taken off in the last 25 years or so. And working mothers are sitting at the epicenter of that movement. It really is starting to be presented as kind of the holy grail for working mothers, particularly because they're trying to find balance among work and family and self-care, as we've talked about. And there is a degree of freedom and flexibility that is absolutely necessary to make that happen well. So sometimes entrepreneurship feels like the best path. And while it absolutely can be, I don't think it's necessarily for everyone. And I've gotten a bit of a front row seat to this through the work that I have done with working mothers over the last number of years, watching a lot of people try to decide, should I stay in my corporate job? Should I leave my corporate job? Should I go work for a different kind of company? Should I work for a nonprofit? Should I start my own business? And starting your own business has just become more and more often the lead option for women, particularly those who are really struggling to establish the level of balance between work and family that they want. Or another camp of women, which are those who are really committed to following their purpose. And they have been in a career path that felt right when they started, but now feel somewhat disconnected from purpose. And as they try to get reconnected, entrepreneurship starts to look like a pretty good option. So it absolutely can be, but it's not necessarily for everyone. I think these visions that are outlined for us in social media, especially these images of running, a 7-figure business in 15 hours a week from anywhere with toddlers in tow, is not necessarily the reality that I see. There are certainly exceptions to that rule, and women who have cracked the code on true financial freedom, geographic independence, and are doing it with very young children at home. But more often, the successful women entrepreneurs that I see are women who are working close to full-time, if not full-time. They're working with children in childcare or in school so that they actually have the ability to focus. In some cases, they do work from home. In some cases, they have offices. And women who are running businesses of those sizes that are really kind of the lauded stories out on the internet often are doing them with teams, with teams of people who are helping them share the workload. It is rare to find a true solopreneur, right? An entrepreneur who has no support team that's attaining that level of growth and success. So what I want to do today is paint a realistic picture of what entrepreneurship would look like. And I want to start by talking about the 3 things that I think make entrepreneurship truly an incredibly attractive path for working mothers, myself included. And it really comes down to control. So there are 3 things that you have almost full control over as an entrepreneur, especially if you define this accurately. So the first is, full control over your time, which is not to say that you will not be working or even working a lot, but you are truly fully in control of the choices that you make about when and where and for how long on any given day or week or month you're investing your time in your work. Okay. So if I have a desire to take a day off because my children are off from school, I have complete control over my calendar. What goes on that calendar, what stays off the calendar, which meetings I take, which meetings I choose not to take. There's no one really to answer to who would say you have to be in this place at this time. The second thing is full control over your income. Now, this has pros and cons because you have full control over your income in that there really is no limit to the upside. You're limited only by the value that you create in the marketplace and the business model that you choose to leverage, because that would have a big impact on your ability to scale. But if you get your business model right and you're clear about the impact you want to have, you have full control over your income. And if necessary, you can throttle that back to give yourself more time or more energy to focus on something different. So I think while we might sometimes talk about entrepreneurship as being risky, right? Because there is a downside to the income potential. The benefit, the reason that people would choose this path is full control over the upside. Okay. And the third area where I think the level of control is very attractive is you have full control over how your work connects to your purpose when you are an entrepreneur. And this notion of connecting work to purpose is something that becomes particularly poignant for working mothers. Why? Because they have something else to do with their time, right? In that era, when you're first starting out at work, it's like work is the most exciting thing you have going on, right? You can have leisure time or you can do work. And so it's just exciting to achieve some success and learn something and get promoted or get ahead. But at a certain point, if that work doesn't feel like it truly matters, like it's making a difference in the world, it gets a little dull, right? It's not as attractive. And through entrepreneurship, you are able to reclaim full control over how your work connects to your purpose. And those 3 things are awesome, right? Having full control over your time, full control over the upside potential to your income, and full control over how your work connects to your purpose really are a package that makes entrepreneurship very attractive, particularly for working women. However, there's another side to this coin. There are 3, I would call them deal breakers, where if these are present, you really want to proceed with extreme caution into entrepreneurial waters because these three things can pull you under, right? Even as attractive as those initial elements are, if you don't get these next three things right, you can have a very short-lived career as an entrepreneur. You can take on a lot of unnecessary risk and you can ultimately fail. And that's not really the path we want for anybody because it's not, entrepreneurship is not the only option. There are other ways to achieve some of these degrees of freedom if they are better suited to you. Okay, so what are these three kind of watch outs or the three deal breakers that you want to pay attention to if you are a aspiring entrepreneur who has not yet started a business?
Feel like you're being pulled in 1,000 directions? Let's fix that. Download your free rebalancing toolkit and learn how to design an optimized week that lets you feel like you have it all. Get the goods at brilliantbalance.net/have-it-all.
The first one is if you don't understand business, the science of business, I would be very careful about entering entrepreneurship. Here's why. A lot of the time, what we are telling people through, magazine articles and books and podcasts is follow your passion. Do what you love and the money will follow, right? Do what you love and you'll never work another day in your life. Well, I have a lot of belief in following your passion. It's something I've done and I am so delighted to have done that. But there has to be a business behind it if you are going to be an entrepreneur. And that means understanding things like financials and marketing and sales. Without those elements, really understanding the financials that drive the business, the marketing that attracts people to the business, and whatever your sales process looks like, you won't have a business, right? You'll have a passion, you'll have a hobby that you enjoy doing, but it won't necessarily produce the results that you need it to produce to be your livelihood. And business is not something that, we're just born knowing how to do. If you went to school to be an attorney, or you went to school to be a physician, or you went to school to be a politician, you didn't necessarily learn the science of business. And so I think that this is an area that you want to really see as a proceed with caution signal. If you want to start a business that's rooted in your passion, and you think that's the way to connect with your purpose and really fully express it, then I would make absolutely sure that you find some level of business training or business coaching or a class that you can take to understand the business model that you are going to put behind that passion as you bring it out into the world. Because it really will tip on a razor's edge from success to failure, depending on how you design that business model. And this is something I've walked with many women, a path I've walked with many women inside of my program for entrepreneurs, because a lot of them come in with a basic understanding of the business that they want to run, but there are some very clear adjustments that we make to their business model early in our relationship that allow them to grow without so much of their personal time being involved, right? Allow them to grow with less friction. So that business modeling and a deep understanding of the science of business, particularly, again, the financials. You have to know how to read a P&L. You have to know what a balance sheet looks like. You have to know how to keep your books. Then marketing and sales. The art of marketing, of knowing how do I really get the word out there and attract people to my business, and how do I convert someone from a prospect to a client, whether you're doing that in person, whether you're doing that over the phone, whether you're doing that where they're making a purchase decision online. All of those elements are really important to understand if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur. Okay, so that's the first watch out, is if you don't understand business, right? If you just have a passion for the thing you want to put out in the world, but you don't really understand the business behind it, you may not be ready to be an entrepreneur. The second piece is if you are not naturally curious, right? If you are not a sort of lifelong learner, entrepreneurship may not be the Holy Grail. Why? Well, I can promise you that there will be about 1 million things every day that need to be done in your business that you do not know how to do. And so figuring them out has to be fun. You have to be excited or keyed up about looking in to figure this out. How do I register a URL for my business? How do I buy a URL that somebody already owns that I don't have? How do I set up Facebook advertising? How do I get a brochure printed? How do I build a website? How do I establish an LLC or an S Corp for my business? There will be countless things that you just don't know how to do, and figuring them out has to be fun. And the other piece that's important about this is you will not get paid for that time. The time that you are investing in learning how to do things, either on your own or with the help of a guide, is not work you're being paid for. So as you're looking at the whole picture of being an entrepreneur, some of the time that you are investing in the business is not monetized, right? Sometimes people get in to be a new entrepreneur and they'll say, well, if I work 20 hours a week and I get paid this many dollars an hour, then this is what that correlates to in terms of a salary equivalent. Well, that's great if you're actually getting paid for every hour you're working. Most people miss that there is a lot of time invested in building the business, right? Growing the business, marketing the business, staffing the business, investing in team members and getting them up to speed, investing in sales and in marketing. All of that is unpaid time. And if you don't view that as fun and necessary, and if you don't have a belief that the answers are out there and you can get them, right? There are people to ask, there are experts to tap, there are courses you can take. You will be able to learn how to do these things, but you have to have that growth mindset and be naturally curious to be a really strong, especially early stage entrepreneur. And the truth is, even as a late stage entrepreneur, there are just new challenges. Every new level that you attain in your business brings a new set of challenges, a new set of things that you have to learn. There are things I'm learning to this day that I just didn't have to know a couple of years ago. And so every week I start off with, okay, what are my learning objectives? What are the things that I have to learn how to do this week, or that we have to build as a capability inside of our team for us to continue to grow? So that's the second thing I would watch out for if you're pursuing this path is, are you someone who is naturally curious? If you're not, if you like to already know how to do things and execute them, and it makes you feel really nervous when you don't know how to do something, I would pay attention to that signal, okay? And the third piece, so we talked about 2 of these watch outs. If you don't understand business as a science, and then if you aren't naturally curious, those are 2 watch outs. The third is, if you're someone who requires a lot of direction or external accountability, you want to really proceed with caution. Because let me tell you, distractions are real. The distractions you experience as a working mother in a corporate life are no different. In fact, they get worse as an entrepreneur because people around you will start to think, well, she's not, quote, really working. In these early stages, it's, well, she works for herself, so she has a ton of flexibility to just drop everything and handle things that need to be handled at home. If you're working from home and you have children at home, their presence can be a distraction to really staying focused on work. Things that need to be done around the house can be a distraction. The opportunity to run to Target can be a distraction. So distractions are real, and focus and planning are critical when you're an entrepreneur. Your ability to have a plan and stick to that plan with focus is paramount to your success. You won't have a boss. There's no one telling you have to get this done today. You'll need to self-impose deadlines. And there's no one to really check your work and say, what do you think? Is this any good? How could we make this better? Especially in the early days. Over time, of course, as an entrepreneur, you'll be building a team. And that can start to replicate that sense of external accountability and the ability to have someone to bounce stuff off of. But if you are thinking about starting a business on your own, it will all be up to you. So in order to succeed in that arena, you have to have an internal drive, a sense of ambition that you are creating that does not require somebody else to tell you where to be and when to be there and what to bring with you. And you can't be dependent on someone else holding you accountable to get something done. That falls on your shoulders. So again, the whole point of this episode is to really wrestle with this question of, is entrepreneurship the holy grail for working mothers? And I think that's what it's being presented as in the marketplace, is this is the path. If you are a working mother and you want to have flexibility, you should pursue entrepreneurship. My belief is it is an astonishingly good path if you want that full control over your time, full control over your income, full control over how your work connects to your purpose, as long as you have those other three things. As long as you do understand business or you have a plan to learn, as long as you are naturally curious and you have a growth mindset and a belief that you can figure it out, and as long as you do not require day-to-day direction and external accountability to get things done, as long as you have that ability to plan and to focus, then I say entrepreneurship is a pretty amazing path and one that I could not be more glad that I chose for myself. So that's what we're going to talk about today, especially for those of you who are considering making a move into entrepreneurship. These are some criteria I would invite you to consider as you're making that decision. And, if you ever want to talk about it and, get some external perspective on, do you have what it takes? Is this a path that it's the right time for you to do? Book a call with me or with someone on my team. And it's a conversation we have every day with people who are considering this path and trying to decide, can they find the balance that they want inside of a corporate environment, maybe with some changes being made there, or is it time to pursue a path in entrepreneurship? And we would be happy to help you kind of think through that decision and make the one that's really best for you. We'll drop a link for how to do that in the show notes for this episode. That'll make it easy for you to find. So next week, when we come back, we are going to talk about Mother's Day. And I am going to share an experience that I had in the card aisle a while back that really got my wheels turning. And I'm going to see if I can get your wheels turning as well. So till next time, if you liked this episode, take 30 seconds or so to just rate the podcast. It's right inside the app you're probably listening to it on. Just scroll down till you see that row of stars and take a second to rate the podcast. I would appreciate that. And then if you are interested in having a conversation about entrepreneurship, look for that link in show notes where you can book a call with me or someone on my team to have a conversation about it. And I would welcome the chance to do that. Till next time, my friends, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.